Kinley here from Orkney Uncovered Private Tours at Saint Magnus Cathedral. Behind me, that's a gigantic cathedral that you can see there. Was built by or constructed by a man called Ronald Colson of Norway. And Ronald Colson, he was the nephew of a man called Magnus. Magnus unfortunately was slain on the April 15th, 1117 on the island of Egilsey. So there was two Norse rulers, Magnus and his cousin Håkon. Neither of them saw eye to eye, so it was decided that a peace treaty take place on Egilsey. Unfortunately for Magnus, it wasn't to be, and he was killed on the shoreline in Egilsey by an axe to the head by a man who was a chef or a cook called Lifoff, who'd been contracted by his man in charge, Håkon, to order the death of Magnus. Anyway, behind me here, about 20 years later, after Magnus died on the island of Egilsey, his nephew Ronald came here. And he came attacking from Shetland and from Norway, wanted to take revenge on the people that caused his family harm. And word got back to his father, who was an architect, that he was killing people he was supposed to be protecting. So his father said to me, "You know what, Ronald, why don't you go about doing something to remember your uncle Magnus?" So he went about building this cathedral. So Saint Magnus Cathedral is the most northerly cathedral in the UK, and it's an amazing church or cathedral. And while you're not looking at my crazy beard, I'll put you to the cathedral itself and I'll tell you a bit about it. The cathedral started in 1137 and it took about 350 years to construct. It's of Romanesque, rounded archways and Gothic pointed. It's a 12th century and 13th century architecture. And all around the cathedral you can see different sections of different stages of the building. So the small sections of stone there that you can see are mostly from the 12th century, but the windows are pointed, so they're for Gothic. If you look up to the top there though, you can see a couple of rounded windows and a slightly higher echelon of the crossing. So those suggest it's 12th century. But it's an amazing cathedral, and I'm going to take my time not to slip on the steps. We'll have a wee look around from the outside of it. The cathedral itself is a Church of Scotland cathedral, and it was where my boy Benjamin was baptised here on the 23rd of August 2014. For me, I take people here for tours. It is a place of worship, but for me it's a place of peace as well. You come in from a busy day of doing touring, switch your phone off because you don't want Metallica playing in the background, and you sit down and relax. And it's like with many of these things here in Orkney, it does take the edge off. But this is the cathedral anyway, and you know, I'll try and do a better one if I get hold of a GoPro. Sits in the historic town of Kirkwall, or city of Kirkwall, pronounced Corkivar. Kirkwall means church in the bay, and it dates back to the early part of the 11th century, or named Church in the Bay after a man called Olaf Brorson and of Norway. But this lovely looking cathedral here is one of the best things about Orkney, and the idea is the Norse built it so they could have something glorious to arrive at the port of Kirkwall. They'd arrive on the shoreline thinking, hey, that's great, here we are. This is our homeland, and this is what we have ahead of here. This is one of our achievements. But it did take a couple hundred years to build it, so that was delayed slightly. Here we are anyway, of the outside of it. The cathedral also went through a number of attacks, not in the First and Second World War, but it was attacked in the 1615 Stuart Rebellion. So Patrick Stuart and his son Robert Stuart laid siege to Saint Magnus Cathedral, and as a result of that, Earl of Scotland, or King of Scotland at the time rather, sent up an army to dispose of them dead or alive. But they did actually lay siege to Saint Magnus Cathedral and a couple of other buildings. So when we walk past, what I'll do is I'll show you some of the musket ball impacts from the cathedral itself. This is the war memorial of 19 14 to 1919 and Second World War as well. As with everywhere in Orkney, most of the grave sites here and cemeteries are Commonwealth War grave cemeteries. As you do in most of the world, we remember our war dead very well. So here's the cathedral from a corner position. And ahead of me, actually, just behind on the road, position behind me, so I can turn the camera around. This road here, or those buildings, if this was the 12th century when this cathedral was constructed, this would be the shoreline. So most of Kirkhole's lower basin has been filled in and reclaimed, and that's what we have today. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you a couple of the musket ball impacts from the 1615 building. So these musket ball impacts, there are several of them. So there's a lot of pepper dash marks around the cathedral. This looks like grape shot or chain shot perhaps up at the top. Anyway, from Kinley here at Orkney Uncovered Private Tours, to yourselves across the world, welcome to Saint Magnus Cathedral, and I'll do a tour soon of the inside of it, but this gives you the general look of what it looks like from the outside and a small piece of history for yourselves. Take care and keep warm. Bye bye.